Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm glad that we're having this second hearing on the U.S.-China economic competition. Since the last hearing, I introduced with a number of my colleagues the America Leads Act. This bill seeks to do four things. One, invest in American competitiveness. Two, invest in American alliances and partners. Three, invest in our values. And four, invest in our economic statecraft to ensure China pays a price for its predatory actions. America Leads provides a comprehensive strategic approach for addressing the new competitive U.S.-China relationship and to define policies and allocate critical resources that combine and mobilize all aspects of U.S. national power, starting with a recognition that American competitiveness starts with investments here at home in our workers, our education, in science and technology and innovation. Further, this bill is driven by a need to retool the U.S. economy and workforce to compete in the 21st century. So with that as a preface as to how I look at this, I'd like to ask Dr. Hart and Mr. Houseman, would you agree that any serious approach to the China challenge has to start with reinvesting in our domestic sources of competitiveness?
Yes, Senator. It's this concept of, as you've indicated in your legislation, where, putting in $350 billion into workers, entrepreneurs, and manufacturing communities will kind of create this virtuous cycle, basically, of, reinvesting in plants that many of these domestic manufacturers have, they were, as has been kind of pointed out, these plants were built oftentimes in the 60s. I look back at the hard hat of the paper mill I used to work at that was built in the late 40s and upgraded its infrastructure over time. But that lack of domestic investment ultimately led to a plant closure about a decade ago yesterday. And so we think about this as like these sorts of innovative competitiveness environments where if we provide those direct investments to our manufacturers, both in today's technology and for future technologies, we'll have an opportunity to really engage.
Thank you, Senator Menendez, for the question. Absolutely. Good defense is great. Good defense is important, but you don't win a game by only playing defense. You have to play offense as well, and that's what those smart investments are all about.
Let me ask you both, I think you may have had a chance to look at the legislation. What do you think is missing from our bill? What did we get right? What did we get wrong? How can we improve it? Any suggestions in that regard?
I would say, the key pieces there, as I've indicated in the testimony on the, the MEP program, the manufacturing institutes, those sorts of expansions of those programs create these hubs of innovation, just the same as, Silicon Valley started with one or two companies and then expanded out. That wealth of knowledge gathers other wealth of knowledges. And investing into these communities, I would say the one thing that really would be impactful is ensuring that we invest in communities such as, that have been hollowed out in the deindustrialization, in part because of China's advance in manufacturing.
Thank you. Senator Menendez, the piece that I think we're all waiting to see is how well these initiatives are resourced. I really commend you for pushing forward the bill in 2020 to invest, and I believe initially proposed $1 billion in providing 5G alternatives to Huawei. And my understanding is that was whittled down to less than $100 million, perhaps over a 5-year time frame. And it's great to take a step forward, but we need to be serious about what we're investing in and how well do we want to equip American workers, American companies to fight a good offense against our biggest peer competitor. That requires real resourcing, not small ball resourcing.
And I appreciate that comment because in view of what China is doing, resourcing their initiatives is a significant competition. I've only got a few seconds left, but let me just ask you, it seems to me that if we really want to be able to challenge China, not only confront it, but to challenge it, we're going to need partners, the EU, Australia, Japan, and others. And when you put all the economies of these countries together, now we have a real fighting chance against China. You know, how would you recommend that we broaden the set of partners willing to work with us to address the real national security and economic threats that China poses?
Thank you. So briefly, the first thing we can and should do is work together to document what China's doing. And then once we have shared broad agreement on exactly what China's doing, then we can identify shared agreement on how we will respond as a unified group.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chairman, for your courtesy. I see Congressman Hurd there. Always appreciate his insights and advice, and look forward to continuing to work with you, Mr. Chair, on this issue.